The sun was low in the sky, casting long, pale shadows over the alien city. Towers of shimmering metal reached high, far above the clouds, their surfaces reflecting the colors of the setting sun. In the heart of the city, the council gathered in a vast plaza, their faces sharp and serious. Today was a day they had awaited for many cycles. Today a human boy would be offered to the dragon. The boy, no more than 12, walked with careful steps toward the plaza. His hands were bound lightly, not with iron, but with ropes that the aliens seemed to think would hold him. He looked around, his dark eyes wide with fear and curiosity. The aliens whispered among themselves, their voices full of pride. They believed humans were weak, fragile, and easily broken. To them, this boy was nothing more than a token of obedience. Despite his fear, the boy did not cry. He did not scream. He kept his head high, his mind sharp. He noticed details that the aliens overlooked. The patterns on the ground, the way the sunlight glinted off the towers, the movements of the guards. Every step he took, he memorized. He thought about ways he could survive, though he did not yet know how. The council opened a path and the boy was led forward. At the end of the plaza, a massive gate stood, carved from black stone that shimmered like water. Beyond it, a faint heat rippled in the air, and a low, vibrating hum filled the plaza. The boy's stomach turned. He had heard stories of the dragon, a creature of legend, enormous and terrible, with scales harder than any metal and fire that could melt rock. But the stories also spoke of intelligence, of creatures that could think and judge. The aliens pushed him closer to the gate. "Step forward," one of them commanded. "The dragon awaits its offering." The boy's feet dragged slightly, but he moved. He felt the heat grow stronger and the hum became a deep, throbbing pulse. He could smell smoke, sharp and metallic. Then, with a sound like rolling thunder, the gate began to open. A massive shape emerged, towering over everything in the plaza. Scales glittered in the sunlight, colors shifting between gold and green. Eyes the size of shields focused on the boy, intelligent and sharp. The dragon's gaze was not cruel, but it was curious, testing, measuring. The aliens gasped, certain that fear would seize the boy. The boy froze, but only for a moment. Then he remembered what his father had told him before they left Earth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward even when you are afraid. He took a deep breath and stepped closer to the dragon. The dragon lowered its massive head, its nostrils flaring. Smoke curled from its mouth, and the heat washed over the boy like a wave. But the boy did not flinch. He met the dragon's gaze with calmness, even as his heart raced. He noticed the small details, tiny scratches on the dragon's scales, the way it shifted its weight, the sound of its breathing. It was alive and it was thinking. The council murmured among themselves, growing impatient. They expected the dragon to roar, to strike, to consume the boy immediately. But the dragon only watched. It took a step closer, tilting its head. The boy, in return, made a small gesture of respect, bowing slightly, not out of fear but as a greeting. The dragon sniffed, a low rumble vibrating through the plaza. It was silent for a long moment, then it lowered its massive claws to the ground. The boy noticed the detail, the sharpness of its claws, the power in its limbs, but also the intelligence in its eyes. The dragon was judging him, deciding something the aliens could not understand. Time stretched. The boy's mind raced. He had no weapons, no plan, only his wits and his courage. He tried to communicate using gestures he had seen in old human stories. He extended a hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. The dragon's eyes followed every movement, every twitch. Finally, the council could wait no longer. "Do it now," one cried. But the dragon moved, not toward attack but closer to the boy. A shiver ran through the aliens. None of them had expected this. They had prepared a sacrifice, but the dragon seemed different. It seemed to see the boy not as prey but as something else. Something important. The boy felt his heart pound, but he did not step back. He stood tall, looking into the dragon's eyes. He did not know what would happen next, but for the first time he felt a strange confidence. Perhaps courage could change everything. Perhaps humans were not as weak as the aliens believed. The dragon sniffed again, then lowered its massive head even closer, letting the boy feel its hot breath. The boy held still, waiting, watching. And for the first time the dragon made a sound, not a roar, not a growl, but a low, deep hum that seemed almost approving. The council trembled. The boy's life hung in the balance, yet he stood calm and unbroken. In that moment, the first spark of an extraordinary bond began to form between the human and the dragon. A bond that no alien could understand, a bond that could change everything. The sun dipped below the towers, casting long shadows over the plaza. The boy and the dragon faced each other, the air between them alive with possibility. The sacrifice had not yet been made. But something far greater was beginning. The dragon's massive body shimmered in the sunlight, each scale reflecting colors that seemed almost alive. The boy's heart raced, but he stood still, watching every movement. He noticed how the dragon's tail flicked slightly, how its wings shifted, not in anger but in balance. It was huge, powerful, and yet there was something in its eyes that was not cruel, it was curious. The council grew restless. "It should attack," one of them shouted. "This is its purpose. The sacrifice must be done." But the dragon did not move toward the boy in anger. It only studied him, tilting its head as if trying to understand something beyond the alien's knowledge. The boy's mind worked quickly. He remembered stories from Earth, of humans facing impossible creatures and surviving by thinking. He looked around and noticed the smallest details, the dragon's nostrils flaring slightly, the rhythm of its breathing, the subtle movement of its claws against the stone floor. It was not just a beast. It was intelligent. Could think. And perhaps it could be reasoned with. Slowly the boy lifted his hands, showing he meant no harm. The dragon's massive eyes followed every motion. A low rumble came from its chest, not a roar of anger but something deeper, almost like a question. The boy took a deep breath. "I am not your enemy," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly but steady enough for the dragon to hear. The dragon leaned closer, and the heat from its body washed over the boy. Smoke curled from its nostrils, and the air shimmered with its power. The boy noticed a faint scent, metallic and sharp, mixed with something earthy. He realized the dragon was alive in every sense, and it was aware of him in a way the aliens could not understand. The council murmured among themselves, fear and confusion mixing in their voices. They had expected fear from the human, not bravery. They had expected a ritual, not a moment of quiet tension and curiosity. The boy, small and fragile by their standards, seemed almost fearless. The dragon made a low, vibrating sound, like rolling thunder in the distance. The boy held still, letting the creature examine him. He looked into its massive eyes and tried to communicate in the simplest way he could: respect, courage, and intelligence. He bowed slightly, not out of fear but as a gesture of acknowledgement. For a long moment, neither moved. The boy felt the weight of the dragon's gaze, and for the first time he understood something important. The dragon was not just a monster to be feared. It was a being that could judge character. It could sense courage. And perhaps, it could recognize value in someone who seemed small and powerless. Then the dragon did something unexpected. It lowered its massive head until it was closer to the boy, letting him feel the heat and the power radiating from its body. The boy felt the vibrations of its chest, each breath like the pulse of the world itself. He did not flinch. Instead, he extended a small hand, a simple gesture of trust and curiosity. The dragon paused, its eyes narrowing slightly, studying the boy's movements. The air was thick with tension, and the council shouted commands, their voices sharp and panicked. "Attack! Do it now!" But the dragon ignored them. It was not the council's servant. It was its own being, thinking, deciding. The boy noticed a faint scar on one of the dragon's claws, small scratches along its scales. It was proof that even a creature this powerful had faced challenges and survived. He realized that bravery was not just his own, it was something that could be recognized, respected, even by a creature so different from humans. A deep, resonant hum came from the dragon's chest, vibrating through the plaza. The boy felt it in his bones, but he did not step back. He held his ground, his eyes meeting the dragon's massive gaze. He was small, yes, but he was unbroken. And in that moment, the dragon seemed to understand something about him. The council panicked further. Their ritual was failing. The human was supposed to be afraid, trembling, begging for mercy. Instead, he stood still, calm, and the dragon did not strike. The aliens whispered, fear creeping into their voices. They could not understand this bond forming before their eyes. The boy's mind raced. He had no weapons, no allies, only his courage and wits. But he also had something the aliens had never counted on: the ability to connect, to show respect and intelligence in the face of fear. He spoke again softly, "I do not want to fight you. I want to understand you." The dragon's massive head tilted, and its eyes glimmered with a strange light, like it was trying to see into the boy's mind. It lowered its snout closer, and the boy could feel the heat and the faint brush of smoke. The dragon's breath smelled of fire and metal, but it was not meant to harm him. It was testing him, judging him, seeing who he was. For the first time, the boy felt a spark of hope. Perhaps humans were not as weak as the council thought. Perhaps courage, intelligence, and respect could change destiny, even in a place ruled by fear. The dragon made a sound, a deep, almost approving hum. The boy's heart leapt. The sacrifice had not yet been made. The human was still standing, and somehow he had reached the first step of something incredible. Something that no alien, no matter how powerful, had ever expected. The sun continued its slow descent, casting long shadows across the plaza. The dragon and the boy faced each other, silent, breathing in rhythm with the tension of the moment. The council could only watch, powerless, as the first bond between human and dragon began to form. A bond that would change everything if only they understood it. The dragon's massive eyes stayed fixed on the boy, golden and green shifting like sunlight on water. The boy held his ground, though his heart beat fast. Every instinct screamed fear, but he kept calm. He had learned quickly that fear could make him weak. Courage, even small courage, could make him strong. The council shouted and waved their arms, demanding the dragon strike. It is supposed to be a sacrifice. Do not let it survive. But the dragon did not move to attack. Instead, it stepped slowly, carefully, circling the boy, its claws making deep grooves in the stone. Each movement was deliberate, testing him, observing him. The boy noticed something strange. The dragon's eyes were not angry. They were studying him. Not as prey, not as a toy, but as if it could understand him, judge his heart. The boy raised a hand and spoke softly. I do not wish to fight. I am not your enemy. The dragon tilted its head. Its nostrils flared, smoke curling from its mouth. It lowered its snout slightly, allowing the boy to feel its hot breath. He could smell fire and earth, something sharp and strong. The boy did not flinch. Instead, he reached out slowly, offering a simple gesture of trust. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The council froze, the guards unsure what to do. They had never seen a human behave like this. The boy's bravery, his calmness, was something they did not understand. The dragon, however, seemed intrigued. The dragon lowered itself more, still silent, allowing the boy to come closer. He studied the dragon's massive body, noting the scars along its scales and the way it shifted its enormous weight. The dragon was powerful, yes, but it had survived many battles. It had intelligence and patience. It could see the boy for what he truly was, not just a human, not just a sacrifice, but someone brave and clever. The boy spoke again softly, I can help you. I can understand you. The words were simple, but they were honest. The dragon's hum grew louder, vibrating through the plaza, a sound that felt like both warning and curiosity. The boy remembered stories from Earth, stories of humans and dragons working together. Perhaps this was more than a legend. Perhaps courage, respect, and intelligence could form a bond even here on this alien world. He reached out a hand, and for the first time, the dragon lowered its massive head completely to his level. Its eyes glimmered, studying him, measuring him. The council gasped. They did not expect this. Their ritual had been perfect, their human sacrifice chosen carefully. Yet the boy had done something none of them imagined. He had faced the dragon not with fear but with calmness, respect, and courage. The dragon was listening, thinking, judging. The boy stepped closer, careful not to scare the dragon. I'm not here to harm you. I can learn from you, he said. The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly, and it made a low, vibrating hum. It lowered one massive claw to the ground, close to the boy but not threatening. The boy's fingers brushed the edge of a scale. It was hard, smooth, warm. Alive. Powerful. Yet it allowed him to touch it. The dragon's hum grew louder, and suddenly it made a sound that was not a roar, not a growl, but something almost approving. The boy felt his heart lift. He had not expected this. He had not expected the dragon to recognize him, to see him as something more than prey. The council shouted in panic. It is not supposed to do this. Strike the human now. But the dragon ignored them. Its eyes stayed on the boy, and the boy knew, somehow, that the dragon had made a choice. Not a choice to attack, but a choice to see him, to understand him. The boy smiled slightly, though his hands were still tied. He bowed his head just a little, a gesture of respect, and the dragon tilted its massive head, responding. The bond was small, fragile, but it had begun. The dragon had called him something without words, something that humans might understand. It had called him worthy. The boy felt a warmth in his chest. For the first time since he had arrived, he felt hope. He was still a human, small and alone on a strange planet. But he had something the aliens did not understand. He had courage. He had intelligence. He had empathy. And the dragon had seen it. For the first time, the boy spoke clearly, I am your friend. The dragon lowered its head further, letting the boy feel its breath and hear the deep rumble of its chest. The council could not believe what was happening. Their sacrifice had failed, but they did not know why. The boy and the dragon shared something no alien ritual could create, a bond built on courage, respect, and understanding. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the plaza. The boy looked into the dragon's eyes and felt a strange, powerful connection. This was more than survival. This was trust, the beginning of something extraordinary. The dragon made a low, approving hum once more, and the boy understood. He was no longer just a human sent to die. He was something else now, someone the dragon had recognized. Someone the dragon might even protect. The council shouted and waved, but their voices were meaningless now. The dragon had chosen its own path, and the boy had earned a place in it. Together they stood, small human and massive dragon, facing the world that had underestimated them both. And for the first time the boy felt that he was not just surviving. He was beginning something incredible. The plaza was quiet now, except for the deep hum of the dragon's chest. The council barked orders, but their voices were weak, trembling with fear. They had sent the boy as a sacrifice, expecting obedience, terror, and death. Instead they saw something they could not understand. A human, small and fragile, standing calmly before a dragon, unafraid and respected. The boy glanced at the council, his dark eyes steady. He realized that they underestimated him, and all humans. They believed strength was only in size and weapons, but he had learned something far more important. Courage, intelligence, and understanding could shift the balance of power. He took a deep breath, letting his calmness spread through his body. The dragon lowered its head closer to the boy, its golden-green eyes glimmering with curiosity. The boy could feel the warmth of its breath, a mixture of fire and earth. He knew he had to act carefully. One wrong move could turn the dragon's attention in a dangerous direction. He needed to show the creature he was worthy of trust. "I can help you," the boy said softly, his voice carrying over the plaza. "I can understand you. I can help you see what they cannot." The dragon made a deep rumble, almost a growl, but it was not anger. It was listening. The boy stepped closer, careful and deliberate. "They do not understand you. They only see what they want to see. But I can help you." The council began to panic. They shouted and waved their hands. "Do not listen. The human is dangerous." But the dragon did not move toward them. Its massive wings shifted slightly, but it stayed focused on the boy. The human had done what the council could not. He had captured the dragon's attention with calm courage. The boy noticed the dragon's claws dug shallow grooves in the stone, and the tips shimmered like polished metal. He thought quickly. He needed to show more than courage. He needed to show intelligence. He looked around the plaza and pointed at the alien machines used to control the dragon during rituals. Wires, levers, and control devices. "They want to control you," he said, "but you do not need it. You are stronger than their machines." The dragon made a soft rumble, almost like a question. Its massive head lowered further, as if considering his words. The boy smiled slightly. He knew the dragon was beginning to understand. Perhaps it could sense his mind, his thoughts, and intentions. Perhaps it could sense his courage and cleverness. The council tried to act. Guards stepped forward with strange energy weapons, hoping to scare the dragon into obedience. But the dragon did not attack the boy. Instead, it spread its wings, a massive shadow falling over the plaza. The sunlight reflected off its scales in dazzling colors, gold and green shimmering like fire on water. The guards froze and the council's confidence faltered. The boy saw his chance. He spoke clearly and calmly, "If you trust me, we can show them that humans are not weak. We can turn this around." The dragon made a deep, approving hum. Its massive body shifted slightly, moving between the boy and the council. The boy raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. He needed the dragon to understand that he was an ally, not a threat. The council panicked further. "Do not let it listen to the human. Strike him down now." But the dragon ignored them. Its eyes stayed on the boy, and the boy realized something incredible. The dragon was on his side. It had recognized his courage, his intelligence, and perhaps even his heart. The boy stepped forward boldly. "I will not fight you. I will not harm you. But I will help you. Together we can show them the truth." The dragon leaned down, allowing the boy to touch its massive snout. The boy felt the warmth of its scales and the power in its body. He realized that no alien machine, no council, could force this dragon. It had chosen to listen. The council tried one last time. They shouted, waved weapons, and demanded obedience. But their authority had vanished. The dragon moved its wings slowly, lifting slightly into the air, making a shadow that covered the council. The boy stood beside it, small but unafraid. He had become a symbol. The council had intended him to be a victim, but now he was a leader, guiding the dragon with words, courage, and respect. The dragon made a low roar, not of anger but of warning. The aliens understood immediately, they could not control this being. They had underestimated humans. The boy, small and human, had turned the tide with his courage, intelligence, and calmness. The plaza fell silent. The boy and the dragon stood together, facing the council and their guards. The council's pride and confidence had evaporated. They could not comprehend what had happened. A human had not only survived a sacrifice but had also won the trust of the dragon, a being far stronger than any of them. The boy smiled slightly. He had learned something important. Humans were underestimated because they were clever, brave, and capable of connection. The dragon had recognized these qualities in him. Together they were no longer prey and predator, they were allies and they would change everything. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plaza. The boy stood tall, beside the dragon that had chosen him. The council and guards stared in disbelief. The human had turned the tables, showing that courage and intelligence could overcome fear and tradition. For the first time the boy felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer a victim, no longer a sacrifice. He was a human, a being capable of change, of leadership, and of extraordinary bonds. And the dragon, majestic and powerful, had called him something without words. A partner, a friend, a new kind of prince. The sun had nearly set, and the plaza glowed with the golden light of evening. The council still trembled, their proud faces pale with fear. They had intended to offer a human boy as a sacrifice, a mere token of obedience. Instead, they saw something they could not understand. A small human standing tall beside a dragon, commanding respect without a weapon or armor, only with courage and intelligence. The boy looked at the dragon, its massive body now calm, its eyes glimmering in the fading light. He had never felt so connected to another being. The dragon had tested him, judged him, and now it had chosen him. A strange warmth filled his chest as he realized the enormity of what had happened. He was no longer a helpless child. He was a symbol, a bridge between two worlds. The council attempted to regain control. "You cannot defy tradition. The dragon belongs to us," one shouted. Guards stepped forward, their energy weapons glowing. But the dragon did not move in fear. It spread its enormous wings, casting shadows over the council, its presence commanding and undeniable. The boy stepped slightly forward, placing a hand gently on the dragon's snout. The dragon leaned into his touch, a deep hum vibrating from its chest. The sound was powerful, full of life and authority. The boy spoke, his voice calm but firm. "They do not understand you. You are not a tool for their games. You are free, and together we can show them a better way." The council faltered. They had never imagined that a human could speak to a dragon in this way. Their rituals had failed, their power broken, and their understanding shattered. The boy's simple words carried weight they could not measure. Courage and truth had more power than any machine or weapon. The dragon lowered its massive head toward the boy, and in that quiet gesture, it acknowledged him. The boy knew the creature recognized his value, not just as a human, but as someone who could think, act, and lead. The word the dragon had given him without speech, "Prince," hung in the air, unspoken yet clear in meaning. The boy looked at the council. "You have traditions, yes," he said, "but traditions are not always right. Strength is not only in power. It is in courage, in intelligence, and in respect. Humans may seem small, but we are capable of great things." A murmur spread through the plaza. Some of the council members looked confused, others fearful. The dragon moved its head slightly, tilting it as if to emphasize the boy's words. It was an unspoken warning. Those who underestimated humans would learn the consequences. The boy raised his hands not in threat but in calm authority. "We can work together," he said. "You, the dragon, and even you, the council, if you are willing to learn. But fear and sacrifice are not the way forward." For the first time the council wavered. They had ruled through tradition and fear for generations, but here was a human, small, unarmed, yet commanding respect from the greatest creature they had ever known. They began to understand that power could take many forms. The boy's courage and intelligence had done what weapons never could. The dragon rumbled, a deep, approving sound. It lowered one massive claw to the ground, close to the boy, as if presenting him to the world. The boy stepped forward, careful, and placed a hand on the claw. He felt the strength of the dragon beneath him, and yet it allowed him to touch it, to share the moment. The council could no longer deny what had happened. A bond had formed between the human and the dragon. A bond built on courage, intelligence, and mutual respect. No ritual, no tradition, no fear could break it. The boy was no longer just a human child. He was something greater. A leader, a friend, a symbol of what humans could achieve. The boy turned to the dragon. "Together," he said softly, "we can show them that fear is not the only way. That understanding, courage, and intelligence can change the world." The dragon's massive eyes glimmered, and it made a low hum that resonated through the plaza. It had agreed. The alliance was real. The council stepped back, humbled. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A human had survived what they believed was certain death. A human had tamed fear, gained the trust of a dragon, and turned the tables on tradition. They began to understand, slowly, that humans were not to be dismissed, not to be underestimated. The boy smiled slightly. He felt hope, power, and responsibility all at once. He had survived, yes, but more importantly, he had changed the course of events. He was small, yes, but he was capable. The dragon, majestic and enormous, now stood beside him not as a threat, but as a protector and ally. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the plaza was bathed in the soft light of evening. The boy and the dragon faced the city together. The council remained silent and humbled, realizing that they had witnessed the rise of something new, a bond between human and dragon, a force built not on fear but on courage, intelligence, and understanding. The boy raised his head, looking toward the future. He had been sent as a sacrifice, but he had become a prince. Not by birth, not by tradition, but by courage, respect, and the extraordinary bond he had forged with the dragon. Together they would change the world. And in that moment, the boy knew something important. Humans, small and fragile though they might seem, could inspire, lead, and overcome even the greatest challenges. Courage, intelligence, and heart were stronger than any ritual, any weapon, any fear. And with the dragon beside him, he was ready for whatever came next.